it would look exactly like the one that killed Lincoln.
That could be worth $1 million.
What?
The guests presented what they believed to be a flintlock pistol from the era of the 13 colonies, which belonged to their father-in-law. This pistol had been discovered by the father-in-law's father in the area during the 1930s, Chicago. The appraiser noted that the pistol was a remarkable example from the Federal era, dating from just after the American Revolution rather than the earlier period the guests had assumed. They identified the unique decorative elements of the gun, particularly a stylized folk art eagle, accompanied by 13 stars.
I'm sure you noticed there's this beautiful stylized folk art eagle with the 13 stars.
Has been attributed to Halbach and Sons of Baltimore, a manufacturer active between circa 1785 and the 1820s. The appraiser estimated the pistol to have been made around 1790, with a possibility of it being produced as late as 1810, but definitely before the War of 1812.
Based on the style of this gun, I'd say it's probably 1790. It could be as late as 1810, but certainly before the War of 1812.
It was noted that Halbach and Sons produced an estimate of 300 to 500 guns, with this pistol classified as a secondary marital piece. Although Halbach never received specific contracts for military production, officers of that time were required to purchase their own equipment, making this pistol a likely personal sidearm for an officer. Despite a few condition issues, including the absence of the fore-end cap and the ramrod, common among pistols of this age.
Had a couple of condition issues. It's missing the fore-end cap, the small piece of brass or sometimes horn that would have capped off that wood and prevented the stock from splitting and chipping in the fore end, which is what it's starting to do now.
The appraiser remarked that the gun's untouched state is what serious collectors seek. The pistol is expected to sell for approximately $4,000 to $6,000, potentially even more, much to the guests' amazement.
In the $4,000 to $6,000 range. It might bring a little bit more, but that's probably where that gun's going to sell.
That's amazing.
More than just a pistol and dagger, it's a piece of Scottish history and tradition. A guest brought in 2 items from his late aunt and her husband, who had travelled the world in 1956. The appraiser asked if there was a Scottish connection, as both items were Scottish. The first item was a flintlock pistol, made by gunsmith Thomas Caddell. It was engraved and had a clip on the back for tucking into a belt, dating from the first half of the 18th century. The second item was a Scottish dirk from the 19th century, likely the second half. The dirk, a ceremonial dagger, was associated with the Scottish Highland regiments and featured gilt bronze mounts and a thistle design. It was also linked to the 79th Highlanders, with battle names from the Napoleonic period. The appraiser pointed out that the bottom piece was the top of a sporran, the purse worn with a kilt. Examining the dirk and sporran, the appraiser said,
"The dirk with the part of the sporran at auction would be $2,000 to $3,000.
The pistol was estimated at $6,000 to $8,000. While valuing both items, the appraiser said,
So total you have here really something like $8,000 to $11,000 at auction.
Wow,
A great
that's
Scottish
amazing.
group of items. I'm glad you brought them in.
Yeah, I'm glad I did too.
A Texas Rangers Colt revolver reveals its surprising historical significance. The guest explained that he acquired the pistol from his father-in-law.
I acquired it from my father-in-law. He was a doctor in Wyoming for many years, quite a historical person into the Indian arts and in cowboy history, so I acquired it from him.
A doctor and a historian in Wyoming with a deep interest in Indian art and cowboy history. The pistol originally belonged to a Texas Ranger who later became a sheriff in Wyoming. The Ranger participated in cattle drives to Wyoming before eventually moving there permanently. The guest believed his father-in-law obtained the pistol from the Ranger's family in the early 1950s. The appraiser confirmed that Texas Rangers were known for using this type of revolver, a Colt 6-shot 45 caliber single-action army revolver, also known as the Peacemaker. The revolver was made in 1884, as indicated by its serial number. The appraiser explained that factory-engraved Colt firearms hold a premium value, though this revolver's engraving was likely done in New York by a retailer. The mother-of-pearl grip and New York-style engraving suggest the revolver was a private purchase, not military issued. The guest admitted he'd never had the pistol appraised, and it had remained in a safety deposit box since he acquired it. He estimated the value of the piece. To his surprise, the appraiser valued the revolver, leaving the guest astounded.
Pre-sale estimate on the gun of around $15,000 to $20,000.
Wow, very, very good. I didn't expect that. That's quite a bit higher than I would have thought.
A forgotten Civil War rifle holds the untold story of soldiers and a rare, priceless bayonet. A man brings a rifle passed down from his grandfather, who saved it from a widow about to throw it into the Ohio River. The appraiser identifies it as a Turner rifle.
So these guns are referred to as Turner rifles because they were used by the Turner societies.
Used by German immigrant societies for target shooting. These rifles were modified for battle when the immigrants fought for the Union in the Civil War. The rifle was likely made in Cincinnati by gunsmith Henry Siebert in the 1850s. The bayonet attached bears to the motto Ban frei and is marked by Cutler Rudolf Hug. German language regiments like the 9th Ohio used these rifles. Despite receiving better weapons later, some Turner rifles remained in use through battles in 1862 and 1863. The appraiser values the set.
Wonderful story. As a grouping, I would put a very conservative auction estimate on this set at between $4,000 and $6,000.
The rarity of the Hug-marked bayonet increases its worth. A centuries-old Turkish firearm reveals a surprising link to Commodore MacDonough. The guest explained the gun's origins.
It initially belonged to Commodore Thomas MacDonough, who is a prominent naval officer in American history.
At 16, MacDonough joined the Navy after receiving a warrant from President John Adams. He served in the USS Constellation during the First Barbary Wars and later transferred to the USS Philadelphia. After the Philadelphia ran aground and was captured, MacDonough was reassigned to the USS Enterprise. He led a mission to burn the captured Philadelphia to prevent its use against the US. After this, he was promoted to first lieutenant, likely receiving the gun as a ceremonial gift. The gun passed through generations of MacDonough's family before reaching the guest. The appraiser then revealed that the gun was Turkish, not American, pointing out distinct features like the thick butt and Mikolit lock. The guest asked about the inlaid stones, which the appraiser identified as dyed bone. The appraiser estimated the gun to be from the 17th century, making it an antique even when MacDonough received it. Despite its condition, the appraiser valued the gun.
At auction, I would estimate that it would make around $7,000 to $10,000.
Oh my Lord. I absolutely had no idea. That's amazing.
Imagine holding a gun tied to Custer's men at the infamous Little Bighorn battle. The guest inherited the item from their grandfather, an antique gun collector with an impressive collection. This particular gun has intrigued the guest, who believes it may be a Custer gun. The guest has traced its origin back to the ranch where it was found, linking it to Sergeant Benteen's records. The appraiser inquired about when the grandfather first acquired the gun.
He was working at Salt River Project, and there's a coworker of his and found out he liked antique guns. He's like, well, I got this gun from a guy in California who used to be a rancher in Montana.
The guest estimated it was in the 1950s.
I do believe it is a Custer gun. I can trace it back to the ranch where it was found. We can trace it to where it was part of Sergeant Benteen's numbers.
When did he first acquire it? What time frame?
It was probably in the 1950s.
The grandfather worked at Salt River Project and obtained the gun from a co-worker who knew of his interest in antique firearms. That co-worker mentioned the gun came from a rancher in Montana and it was possibly a Custer gun. The gun was produced from around 1873 until World War II, with approximately 350,000 of them made. The gun's serial number falls within the relevant range, suggesting it could potentially be a Custer gun. The appraiser agreed, noting that proving this involved examining limited records and researching serial number ranges.
And most of it comes down to ranges of guns, but this is clearly in the Custer range.
Okay.
It has certain features of the early single actions which are desirable.
Upon inspecting the gun, the appraiser noted the serial number 5918 and an A, which indicates it was inspected by O.W. Ainsworth. The appraiser expressed concerns about the condition of the varnish.
We can see the cartouche of O.W. Ainsworth. The issue that I have with it is that the varnish is worn off of it, and so the cartouche is still very strong.
The appraiser then asked if the guest had considered the gun's value.
So the cylinder at some point was replaced.
Okay.
So have you given consideration to what the value is?
And the guest estimated it's worth around $5,000.
I was guesstimating around $5,000.
Yeah. Well, you're spot on.
Okay.
The appraiser did confirm this estimate, suggesting the gun could fetch between $5,000 to $8,000 at auction.
I would estimate at auction, even with its problems, that it would fetch somewhere around $5,000 to $8,000.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's pretty good, again, because you almost have half a gun there.
The appraiser noted that with more original parts, it could be worth between $20,000 to $40,000.
If you had more parts that were original to the gun, I would estimate that it would probably fetch somewhere between $20,000 to $40,000 at auction.
Wow.
A rifle believed to date back to the Civil War, citing a South California marking on the plating as evidence of its historical significance. The appraiser examined the rifle and revealed it was actually manufactured in New Haven by Whitney, a company founded by Eli Whitney, known for his invention of the cotton gin. The markings on the rifle indicated it was made around 1810, predating the Civil War. The appraiser explained that Whitney had contracts with South Carolina, supplying between 800 and 1,000 guns as early as 1816.
South Carolina to supply them weapons. This gun predates the Civil War.
Really?
It's going to date from about 1810.
This specific rifle's marking of S.O. Carolina suggests it was either part of that contract or already in South Carolina at that time. The condition of the rifle was partially noteworthy. It was described as attic mint, indicating it had been well preserved, likely stored away after use. Originally a flintlock, it had been converted to a percussion system.
The conversion that's done on it,
which the appraiser noted could have occurred during the Civil War as older models became obsolete. The smoothbore 69 caliber musket featured a crude, hand-forged hammer characteristic of Confederate conversions, adding to its historical interest. The appraiser assessed the value of the rifle. Without the South Carolina marking, it would be worth around $1,500. However, due to the marking and its appealing condition,
What? $6,000 and $8,000?
and I think that's a little conservative.
the estimated retail value ranged from $6,000 to $8,000, possibly even higher, which left the guest both amazed and delighted.
Amazed, totally amazed.
The guest shared a fascinating history of a rifle that has been passed down through 6 generations of their family, originating from their great-great-great-grandfather. The rifle, which the guest fondly remembers seeing in their childhood, was inherited from a great-uncle about 12 years ago. The appraiser, Paul Carella, examined the rifle, noting that it was signed by A. Daniels, a gunsmith active from the 1820s to the 1840s in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He confirmed that the guest's ancestor likely purchased the rifle new, emphasizing its exceptional craftsmanship.
It's actually quite common for rifles during this period to have been made with engraved silver and brass overlays.
The rifle features intricate engraved silver and brass overlays, showcasing a level of artistry that suggests a significant investment at the time. One particularly unique aspect that caught Carella's attention was a decorative element resembling either a fish or a bird's eye,
with a mother-of-pearl plaque, and that feature is, to me, really unique.
created with a mother-of-pearl plaque, an uncommon feature he'd rarely encountered in other firearms. Regarding the rifle's value, Carella estimated that similar engraved rifles typically range from $5,000 to $7,000.
Of this type of rifle would generally go for about $5,000 to $7,000.
However, due to the extensive overlays and the distinctive mother-of-pearl detail,
But I think with the extent of the overlays that you have, and with, again, this little mother-of-pearl feature, I would say that at auction the gun would probably make somewhere between $12,000 to $15,000.
Wow.
he assessed that at an auction, this rifle could fetch between $12,000 to $15,000, much to the guest's surprise and excitement. Imagine a shotgun captured just days before the Civil War ended, a relic steeped in history and heroism. This shotgun was captured by the owner's great-great-grandfather just 3 days before the Civil War ended at Appomattox. The great-great-grandfather, Charles Porter Maddox, was a Mainer who fought with the 17th Maine. Maddox's military career could inspire a Hollywood movie. He served throughout the war and was transferred to the elite 1st U.S. sharpshooters in early 1964. Maddox fought with them throughout the Wilderness Campaign until he was captured. He rejoined his regiment just before the war's conclusion, participating in the Battle of Sailor's Creek. There, Custer's cavalry captured over 300 wagons, and Maddox led a charge that secured 2 Confederate battle flags. Among the captured wagons were items that belonged to Confederate General James Longstreet, a controversial figure in the South. After the war, Longstreet became a Republican and supported his old friend, Grant, which led to his being labeled a traitor in the South. The shotgun is a high-quality Mortimer, made between 1840 and 1854, featuring intricate scroll engraving. The topic of the Civil War can be sensitive due to its dark history, but it does highlight moral courage in fighting for others' rights. Without its historical context, the shotgun might be worth $1,500 to $2,000. However, with its significant provenance, the estimated auction value ranges from $50,000 to $100,000. Some collectors have recently paid exorbitant prices for historically significant guns, suggesting strong market demand. The owner and expert believe this shotgun could potentially approach seven figures at an auction due to its remarkable history. It is noted that no other items directly owned by Longstreet are currently available, making this shotgun especially valuable. A hidden Colt Dragoon revolver from the 1850s reveals a surprising history and value. The guest explained that his father was somewhat of a hoarder and owned a small trunk.
And he had a little trunk. He never let us kids into it. And when he passed away, my brother and I went and looked, and there was odds and ends in there.
The father never allowed the children to look inside it. After the father's passing, the guest and his brother went through the trunk, finding various odds and ends. Among these items was an unfamiliar object that caught the guest's attention. The guest mentioned that, as far as he knew, his father never left North Dakota. The guest admitted that he wasn't knowledgeable about guns and had no idea where the object came from. The appraiser asked if the guest's brother had wanted the item. The guest replied that his brother took what he wanted from the trunk, and he ended up with the object in question. The appraiser revealed that the item was a third model Dragoon revolver, manufactured between 1851 and 1861. Based on its serial number, the appraiser estimated the revolver was from the mid-1850s. Despite some condition issues, the appraiser valued it at auction.
If I had it at auction, I think I would put somewhere around $2,500 to $3,500 on it.
Well, good. That's good to know.
A rifle with a story rich and grand connects generations through history's hand. A guest brought in a rifle that belonged to her husband.
This rifle belongs to my husband. He inherited it from his grandfather. And to be honest with you, that's all I know about it.
She knew it was a breech loader, but had little else information. The appraiser confirmed it as a US model 1819 Hall rifle. He explained that most military weapons of that time were flintlock guns. This rifle is innovative because it allows for faster loading. The appraiser mentioned that John Hall designed the first interchangeable guns at a US arsenal. He noted a design flaw that caused gas to leak from the breech when fired. The rifle had some condition issues, including a missing part and a small crack. The appraiser estimated its value. The guest decided it would stay in the family and remain on display.
So you've got a $3,000 to $3,500 package here, and you have a great example of American ingenuity and the birth of the American system of interchangeable parts manufacture.
It's not just a family heirloom. This Confederate-made Richmond musket holds a key piece of Civil War history. A guest brought in a family heirloom.
I brought a family heirloom, a Civil War musket that's been passed down for a long time.
The appraiser explained that it was a Richmond rifle musket made by the Confederates in Richmond, Virginia during the Civil War. The gun was made using equipment taken from the Harper's Ferry Arsenal in 1861. This musket, dated 1862, is a simpler version of the US 1855 rifle musket because the Confederates couldn't produce the more complex parts. Some special features, like the CS Richmond marking on the lock plate and the brass butt plate, help identify it as a real Richmond musket. The gun is in good condition, with only a small part, the upper sling swivel, possibly replaced. The appraiser valued the musket.
Insure this gun at about $8,000.
If the guest can prove that the gun belonged to his ancestor, Silas Bishop, the value could double. The guest was surprised by how valuable it was. In the quiet corners of history, a rifle once hidden under a bed tells a tale of legacy, war, and the evolution of firearms. The rifle belonged to the narrator's grandfather, likely inherited from his father. The grandfather kept it under his bed during the narrator's childhood. The narrator emphasizes gun safety, stating firearms should never be stored where children can access them.
Revolvers for the U.S. military. It's a cavalry carbine that was made for cavalry use for the Union Army. It was contracted for very late in the Civil War.
The rifle was manufactured by the Star Wars Company of New York, starting in the late 1850s. This rifle is a cavalry carbine designed for the Union Army. It was contracted very late into the Civil War, coinciding with the rise of self-contained metallic ammunition. This advancement led to firearms resembling modern cartridges with brass cases and primers. The Star Wars company started delivering these rifles in March 1865, but the war ended in April 1865, so none were issued. Only 5,000 breech-loading carbines were produced and later sold as surplus. Many were sold to the French and saw service during the Franco-Prussian War. The narrator describes the rifle as being in excellent untouched condition.
These were semi-obsolete to begin with, now they're really obsolete. It's in really nice, completely untouched condition. And it doesn't have a French arsenal inventory number on the back of the butt.
Rough examples typically sell for $8,000 to $12,000 at auction.
Survival rate's low, and finding nice ones is hard.
This particular rifle, in super crisp condition, is expected to sell for $2,500 to $3,500 at auction.
This gun's going to sell between $2,500 and $3,500.
The guest initially mistook the item for a purse, only to discover it was a wallet pistol. They found it while renovating a historic centre chimney cape house from around 1800 in Essex, tucked away in a compartment behind the fireplace. The appraiser explained that this unique item functions as both a change purse and a concealed firearm. Upon pressing a button, the pistol's barrel is revealed, along with a folding trigger. This design allows the user to appear as though they are fumbling with their purse while they're actually preparing to defend themselves.
A folding trigger will come out. The concept behind the pistol was that as a robber came up to you and trying to take your money from you, as it appears that you're fumbling with your purse, you're actually preparing to shoot.
The pistol operates on a pinfire system, featuring small holes at the base for a cartridge pin that, when struck by the hammer, discharges the projectile. The appraiser noted that this innovative design was created by Oskar Franknow.
It was designed by Oskar Frankenau from Nuremberg, Germany, and he took out a U.S. patent for this idea in November of 1877. So this pistol and this change purse comes from around the late 1870s.
From Nuremberg, Germany, who patented the concept in November 1877. Dating from the late 1870s, this wallet pistol reflects the era's interest in concealed firearms.
In the late 19th century, there was a lot of interest in all sorts of different types of concealed firearms, and this is just one variation.
Although such items were relatively scarce in the marketplace,
they were not necessarily that popular, so they're fairly scarce on the marketplace.
The appraiser estimated its auction value to be between $3,000 and $5,000.
I think that if this was to appear at auction, it would bring somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000.
Excellent.
So that's just as good as finding money, right?
You're better.
The revolvers belonged to the husband of the guest's cousin and were inherited from his grandfather. The appraiser asked if the guest knew who made the revolvers, to which the guest replied that they were produced by the Star Arms Company. The appraiser explained that the Star Arms Company was based in New York, and the revolvers featured the star mark on the one side of the frame and the patent information on the other. The revolvers were patented in 1856, but entered major production in the late 1850s. The appraiser described the revolvers as double action, but clarified that they were actually self-clocking. When the trigger is pulled, it cocks the hammer, but it doesn't fire. The appraiser noted that a secondary trigger is actually what releases the hammer, making it a true double-action mechanism. While it was considered state-of-the-art at the time, soldiers didn't favor it due to its tendency to break easily.
And that releases it. It was state-of-the-art for the time, but sometimes state-of-the-art isn't well received.
I see.
The soldiers didn't like it because it would break easily, and so they made a single action after this where you cock it back, pull the trigger, and it fires.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Subsequently, a single-action model was developed, requiring the user to clock the hammer before firing. One interesting feature, highlighted by the appraiser, was a small slide on the revolver, which was one of the first functioning safeties on a pistol.
That's one of the first functioning safeties on a pistol. And if you drop that down, it will allow you to cock the trigger, but it won't hit that concealed trigger. It's actually a functioning safety, which most of them didn't have at that time.
When engaged, this safety allowed the user to cock the trigger without hitting the concealed trigger, a rarity for the period. In contrast, these revolvers displayed smooth action and retained much of their original bluing, with a bright, appealing blue finish.
With these, the action's fluid throughout. They have lots of the original blue in case color. If you notice, it's even a bright blue.
This condition made them significantly better than typical examples. Given their excellent condition, they would retail for around $3,000 each.
Because of the condition, would retail for about $3,000 a piece.
Oh, really?
The guest was amazed by this valuation and surprised at the quality of their inherited firearms. The appraiser explained that without such a finish and condition,
without this finish and this condition, they're a gun that usually sells in the $1,000 to $1,200 range. So these are substantially better than the standard ones.
Well, very good.
similar revolvers usually sell for $1,000 to $1,200, underscoring the superior quality of these specific pieces. In the world of collectibles, sometimes a seemingly ordinary gun holds the key to extraordinary stories and treasures. The owner purchased several items from a friend who had passed away. The friend's wife intended to leave the items to their son, but he wasn't particularly interested. Therefore, she sold them to the owner. When asked if he had any idea what he was buying, the owner admitted he had no clue.
We see them quite a bit, and it's made to look like an Indian used rifle. They use things like this at the Little Bighorn battlefield.
Okay.
The interviewer inquired about what had appealed to him the most.
.3 Winchester.
All right.
Now, the other items you got are authentic, but it's kind of a mixed bag. You've got a small knife scabbard over there.
The owner responded that it was the Suffolk Army. He mentioned that he hadn't even noticed the moccasins at first, only the gun caught his attention. This fascination led him to make the purchase. The interviewer noted that the gun fascinated many others as well. Curious, the interviewer asked what the owner paid for the gun.
Probably bring about $150 to $200.
Okay.
And the Iroquois pouch would probably bring about $150 to $200.
The owner revealed that he spent $3,500 on it.
Beaded Plains Indian pouch.
Huh.
I've only seen one piece of pony beadwork in 12 years at the Roadshow.
The interviewer followed up by asking if he knew what kind of gun it was at the time. The owner confirmed he recognized it as a Winchester. The interviewer identified it as a .73 Winchester, describing it as somewhat beat up and typical of doctored up versions. That particular bag on today's market would probably be worth $8,000 to $12,000. This rifle is more than just a family heirloom. It's a remarkable piece of artistry and history. A guest brought a rifle in that his grandfather had left him.
I brought in a rifle that my grandfather left me about 30 years ago. Dropped it off one Christmas morning, and I was named after him, so as a grandson, I inherited it from him, I guess.
He mentioned that he was named after his grandfather and inherited the rifle as a grandson. The appraiser asked if the guest knew where his grandfather got the gun, but the guest had no idea. He only knew that the rifle was a .219 Zipper caliber. The appraiser praised the rifle, calling it a work of art rather than just a weapon. He identified it as a beautiful German-made Schützen rifle, known for its intricate designs and craftsmanship. The rifle featured detailed relief carving on the stock and beautiful metalwork, including cherubs carrying game. The appraiser advised the guest not to shoot the rifle, as it could get damaged. While examining, the appraiser estimated its retail value.
This one would retail today for about $8,000.
Okay. Nice.
Hidden for decades, a forgotten antique pistol reveals a captivating story. This piece belonged to the owner's great-grandfather and was inherited by their grandfather.
Suppress it, and my father said, "Don't do that," when he realized that it was actually a little pistol, a little palm pistol.
The grandfather mistook it for a tool and stored it in his toolbox.
Grandfather inherited it. He didn't know what it was, so he thought it was a tool, and it was in his toolbox. And when he passed, we were going through his things, and my other grandfather pulled it out.
After his passing, another grandfather found it, but wasn't sure what it was. The owner's father recognized it as a little pump pistol and advised against discarding it.
It's a pretty cool little gun, and it's really a novelty.
Made by the Chicago Arms Company, the pistol is a novelty item and it's no longer produced. Around 13,000 of these pistols were made, with around 1,000 finished in blue. This model features a rotary system with 7 chambers that must be loaded one at a time. It uses a squeeze action to fire a .32 short rimfire cartridge, which is no longer available. In its current condition, this gun could easily sell for $2,000 at a gun show.
A gun like this would retail at a gun show easily $2,000.
Wow.
A rare 1847 cavalry carbine, expertly preserved, uncovers a fascinating piece of military history. The guest bought a cavalry carbine, model 1847, which he purchased in the late 1960s or early 1970s. He recalled not paying a lot of money for it.
What'd you pay for it?
If I remember, I paid $225 for it.
Okay.
The appraiser confirmed it was a Springfield cavalry carbine produced from 1848 to 1859. It was originally a smoothbore muzzle-loading gun with percussion ignition, but was later rifled to improve accuracy. The appraiser noted that only a few hundred of these carbines were altered, making this a rare and valuable example. When altered, a rear sight for long-range shooting was added, along with a chain-attached ramrod to prevent it from being lost while on horseback. The appraiser pointed out that many of these guns had cracked butts due to the lead weight, added to reduce recoil, but this one remained intact. He praised it as one of the best examples he'd seen, and at auction, he estimated the gun's value to be.
Auction estimate for a gun in this condition that's totally complete and correct like this, somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000.
Well, that's a nice return on investment.
This Colt is more than just a gun. It's a piece of history with a legendary past. A guest brought in an 1851 Navy Colt. This gun was given by President James Buchanan in 1859 to frontiersman Seth Kinman. Kinman made horn chairs and gifted them to several presidents, including Lincoln. The guest got the gun from his father, who found it at an estate sale 25 to 30 years ago. The appraiser noted the wear on the gun and its engraving. He said the names and date increased its value. Kinman was a scout who helped the government and worked with Native American tribes. The gun is a .36 caliber model 1851 made in Hartford, Connecticut. Kinman made modifications to the gun, including a new front sight made of bone or horn. While giving a value for the item, the appraiser said,
"In today's world, should be insured for about $50,000.
Wow. Wow.
Amidst the echoes of history, a rifle marked number 1 holds secrets of bravery and innovation. Swan Ocean Gallery showcased an old Civil War rifle called a Sharps and Hankins. The rifle features a 32 3/4 inch barrel with a hexagon bore. The number 1 distinguishes this firearm as an important piece of American history. This rifle is a .52 caliber, setting it apart from most Sharps and Hankins rifles. In 1862, Sharps and Hankins came together to produce this model as one of their primary firearms.
There were a couple of other unique features with the Sharps and Hankins. One is the way that it loaded. We can pick it up. The whole barrel slides forward to let you put the cartridge in.
They manufactured 8,000 of these guns, but this one is the very first. The rifle features a beautiful Sharps mark and factory engraving, indicating its special status. The barrel is the longer version, later cut down for regular production. The Navy model had a 24-inch barrel, while the cavalry model supported a 19-inch barrel. Unique-looking features allow the entire barrel to slide forward for easier cartridge loading. The rifle has an iron butt plate, while later military models feature grass butt plates.
A regular Sharps worked. Sharps had been around for a long time making military models, sporting models, several different models, and this was one of the things that he thought was an improvement.
A small lever on the back serves as a functional safety mechanism. The safety operates by clocking it back and sliding it up, preventing the hammer from striking the center pin. The small screw for the safety often gets lost, making this example notable for its intact feature. Given its serial number 1 and unique characteristics, the rifle is estimated to retail for about $10,000 today.
Enjoyed, not just sat on a shelf. How did you come by it?
My daddy gave it to me. When we got married, he walked up and handed me that and said, "Take it to your home."
The owner believes its historical significance surpasses that valuation, but acknowledges that it's likely market price.
I feel that the gun today would retail for about $10,000. And to me, it's more historically significant than that, but that's where it would bring in today's market.
It's pretty good.
A pistol tied to tall tales reveals its hidden value and a fascinating connection to Civil War era collectors. A man enters the appraisal with a small pistol from his father-in-law's collection. He shares that his father-in-law, a teller of tall tales, claims it's the same model used to kill Lincoln. The appraiser listens and inquires about its history.
But what do you mean by the same model?
Same type of gun.
So he wasn't saying that it was.
The appraiser explains that Lincoln was killed with a .44 caliber Derringer. However, the pistol in question was made by Andrew Wolfline, a Philadelphia gunsmith from the same era, though it's not a Derringer. The pistol is nearly identical in style to the one that killed Lincoln. The guest is relieved, acknowledging his father-in-law wasn't entirely off in his story.
It would look exactly like the one that killed Lincoln.
Well,
okay?
give him credit for that.
Yeah.
The appraiser then draws attention to an intriguing marking, T.F. Guyon, no, indicating it was sold by a scarce agent in New Orleans. Collectors highly value these rare variants, especially those linked to the southern agents of Philadelphia gunmakers. Despite some damage and a replaced trigger guard, the appraiser values the pistol at a decent price.
I think the pistol is probably worth, at auction, somewhere around $1,500 to $2,500.
The man, surprised, laughs and admits his wife was right about the gun's true worth. The rifle originally belonged to the guest's grandfather and was passed down through the family, ultimately coming to them from their husband. The appraiser responded positively, noting the significance of the Henry rifles, a predecessor to the modern Winchester repeating rifle, designed by B. Tyler Henry. This particular model is a 15-shot 44 caliber lever-action rifle.
It was a 15-shot 44 caliber lever-action rifle designed by B. Tyler Henry. The first usage of it in warfare was during the war between the states.
With its first use in warfare during the war between the states.
The iron frame is the important feature of this particular gun. I'd like to show you the early serial number of this rifle.
The appraiser highlighted the iron frame as a key feature and pointed out that the early serial number, 64, indicates that this is a very early example. Although the rifle was originally blued, its finish has faded into a patina due to light cleaning.
The rifle was originally blued and the finish is somewhat faded into a patina. It's been lightly cleaned.
The appraiser estimated the rifle's value to be between $75,000 and $100,000.
I would estimate this rifle today from $75,000 to $100,000.
My goodness, thank you very much.
Now, isn't that a nice surprise?
It sure is. It's a wonderful surprise.
From a father's hand to pirate's land, this pistol holds stories grand. The guest's father was a gun collector. He bought a unique pistol at a gun show in Ohio around 1960.
Well, my father was a gun collector and bought this gun at a gun show in Ohio.
The guest fell in love with the pistol at just 10 years old. After his father passed away, he inherited it. The appraiser confirmed it as an 18th century North African pistol. It likely dates to the second half of that century. The pistol features red coral and silver inlay. There is Arabic script on the barrel, possibly a maker's name. The appraiser noted that polishing the silver could reduce its value. The appraiser estimated the value.
This pistol would bring probably about $5,000 to $7,000 in today's
That's good. I can do that. I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. That's great.
The guest joked that any Hollywood director could borrow it. The guest recounted the history of a Colt revolver that had been passed down through generations, originating from their great-great-grandfather. This revolver was given to him around 1872 by a friend who had served with him in the Civil War. According to a letter dated 1923, written by the guest's great-grandfather, this friend, Fletcher Budd, was a criminal lawyer in Philadelphia and reportedly served as a bodyguard for President Lincoln.
The friend of my great-great-grandfather's, this Fletcher Budd, was a criminal lawyer in Philadelphia in the 1870s, 1880s, and other than that, we don't know much about him.
The letter also mentioned that Budd allegedly fired a shot at Booth during the assassination, a detail that intrigued the appraiser. The appraiser, Paul Carella, examined the revolver, identifying it as a Colt Model 1849 pocket revolver, which came cased in what appeared to be all its original accessories. Carella noted that the serial number indicated the gun was made in 1862, making it plausible that it could have been used during the timeline of the Lincoln assassination on April 14, 1865.
So, as you know, Lincoln was assassinated on April 14, 1865.
Yes.
So it's very conceivable that this gun, at least from a timeline, could have been used. From what I know of the assassination, Lincoln only had one bodyguard that night.
He explained that Lincoln only had one bodyguard that night, John Parker, who had left his post, allowing Booth to enter Lincoln's private box. Carella acknowledged the significance of the revolver's historical context, although he noted that verifiable documentation about Budd's involvement would be necessary to substantiate the claims.
You would think so, exactly.
This was one of the most investigated crimes in its day. So if he had any sort of even peripheral association, it would have been documented.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's good to know.
In its current condition, the revolver was estimated to be worth around $2,000 to $3,000 at auction. However, if the history could be thoroughly documented, its value could significantly increase to $15,000 to $20,000.
If there was any way that we could truly document the history behind it and support it more, I would guess that it would be about $15,000 to $20,000.
Oh, wow.
The guests shared a captivating family history, revealing that their great-grandfather served as sheriff in Montrose County, Colorado. The guests presented 2 handguns, one belonging to their great-grandfather and the other their great-grandmother. A photograph of the couple in a book showcased their great-grandfather, characterized by his tall stature and mustache.
And this is a picture of him here in the book?
Yeah, this tall drink of water here with the mustache is my great-grandpa.
Appraiser Paul Carella noted that the holster was marked Montrose, Colorado. When asked if the guns had ever been appraised, the guest recalled a previous estimate of $1,000 to $2,000.
Did you ever have them appraised, the guns?
We had a guy look at them several years ago, and he said they were in the $1,000 to $2,000 range for the weapons.
Carella examined the first firearm, a Colt single-action revolver with a .38-40 caliber and a 4.5-inch barrel, and valued it at approximately $3,500.
The Colt single action there in front of you, it's .38-40 caliber, the 4 3/4-inch barrel.
The second firearm, a Colt Model 1877 double-action revolver, was particularly impressive, known as the Thunder. This .41 caliber revolver was factory engineered by master engraver Helfrich, showcasing C engraving, which is the highest quality, with intricate designs extending to the barrel's end. It featured elegant pearl grips and came with a matching Western gun belt and holster. The double-action revolver, made in 1889, was in excellent condition, with about 97% of its nickel finish remaining, leading Carella to assign it a retail value of $15,000. He further appraised the holster at about $3,000. In total, considering the historical significance and condition of the set,
the retail price on it would be $15,000.
Wow.
And the holster is worth about $3,000.
Really?
He estimated their combined value to be around $20,000, which left the guest astonished.
And together, because of the history and the set, it's $20,000.
That's pretty amazing.
Guns not only serve as tools of defense or offense, but they also carry deep historical and cultural significance. A guest brought in an old Colt .44 revolver that had been passed down through his family. The appraiser explained that it was actually a Colt second model Dragoon, a large gun made in 1850. The model is heavy, weighing 4 pounds, and features a square brass trigger guard.
This one is just the way it's been since 160 years ago.
The guest recalled shooting it once as a child, but the powerful recoil knocked him over. The appraiser pointed out marks that indicated it had been used by the military, not civilians. He also admired the burn mark on the grip, which added to its history. While examining the condition of the item, the appraiser said,
"This gun would retail for about $8,000.
Okay, sounds good.
A family heirloom shotgun linked to a Mormon soldier reveals a rich history. The guest shared that the shotgun belonged to his great-great-grandfather, George Washington Boyd. Boyd converted to the Mormon church in Nauvoo and was adopted by Caleb Baldwin after losing his parents. He later joined the Mormon battalion and famously walked back to Utah from California to marry Baldwin's daughter. Tragically, she died in childbirth a year later, prompting Boyd to marry Baldwin's other daughters. He then worked for the Overland Mail Company as both a stagecoach guard and a station master. The appraiser was fascinated by the rich local history tied to the gun. He identified the shotgun as likely made in Birmingham, England.
And the interesting thing is that the gun speaks to the same history. Here's the brand of the Overland Mail Company. The gun actually is probably made in Birmingham, England.
A.J. Plate was a notable firearms dealer with a history of legal disputes over trademarks. The appraiser explained that the gun was stamped with the Overland Mail Company's brand to deter theft. He emphasized that while stagecoach-marked guns are scarce, this was the first Overland Mail Company coach gun he had encountered. He estimated the gun's market value at auction.
That the gun would be worth at least $3,000 at auction, if not more.
What began as a special souvenir from Scotland turned out to be a rare pair of pistols worth thousands. A guest shared they bought a pair of pistols in 1977 while stationed in the Navy in Thurso, Scotland. They purchased the pistols from a jeweler.
From a jeweler there. I
gave him 500 pounds for him, which is quite a bit of money, which is close to $700.
The guest wanted to bring something special back from Scotland and chose these pistols. The appraiser identified them as all-metal Scottish pistols made by John Campbell, a skilled gunsmith from Perthshire. These pistols were crafted between 1710 and 1790, and they're in excellent condition. They feature a ram's horn butt and beautiful Baroque designs, making them quite unique. In 1985, a gunsmith valued the pistols at $1,500 to $2,000. The appraiser, however, estimated their value.
I think that they're easily worth $12,000 to $15,000. So, sailor boy, you did a good job.
Wow.
That was a good investment.
I think they're going to a bank.
The guest was surprised and joked about putting them in a bank, but the appraiser advised them to insure the pistols instead. A family heirloom tied to legends of outlaws holds a secret that rewrites its history. A man walks into an antique show holding a weathered pistol with pride. He tells the appraiser how his grandfather had found the gun on his ranch back in 1920 with Brigham Hamilton, a former member of Butch Cassidy's gang, by his side. According to Brigham, the gang always carried extra pistols in their saddlebags, as the ones in their holsters would often fall out while being chased by posses. The man explains that given the proximity to the gang's hideout, they believed this pistol once belonged to one of Butch Cassidy's men. After hearing the year 1920, the appraiser examined the Colt single-action army revolver, noting its serial number and condition. He points out some initials carved into the grip, which the guest identifies as his grandfather's. However, after a brief pause, the appraiser gently delivers the bad news.
The gun was actually manufactured in 1903. Okay. So unfortunately, your story probably is not correct.
Oh.
The man, slightly deflated, listens as the appraiser explains the historical timeline and how the story doesn't quite add up. Despite the revelation, the appraiser offers a silver lining, estimating its worth.
At auction, this revolver would bring about $1,500 to $2,000.
Okay. Wow.
If the story was correct, I would say that the gun could have probably been worth $5,000 and upwards.
Oh, wow.
A cane that's a gun, rare and bold, worth far more than the bottle you sold. The guest explained that he acquired the item through a trade with a close friend. When asked what he traded, the guest mentioned it was an old bottle that his friend had taken an interest in. The guest admitted he knew very little about the item, other than it was a walking stick that also functioned as a gun. The appraiser revealed that it was a pistol cane made by Jacob Kunz, a prominent gunsmith from Philadelphia, active in the early 19th century. Kunz, known for crafting rare air guns, also had his work featured in the Lewis and Clark expedition. The appraiser noted that only 8 of Kunz's air guns are known to exist, making the pistol cane extremely rare and valuable. When asked about the bottle's value, the guest said his friend estimated the price.
Tell me now, what is the bottle worth that you traded?
Well, my friend valued the bottle at about $1,000 to $1,500.
While examining the item, the appraiser said,
Because I think this really is worth $10,000 to $15,000.
$10,000 to $15,000.
$10,000 to $15,000.
I'm sure my friend will be contacting me.
The guest humorously remarked that his friend would likely be in touch soon. A Civil War-era rifle reveals a hidden history, a rare feature, and a surprising valuation. A guest brings an old gun that has been in the family since the Civil War, believed to have been left behind by a Union soldier at his great-great-grandmother's Mississippi home. He identifies it as a Marbury carbine, but the appraiser corrects him.
What kind of gun is it?
Well, from the name on it, I've discovered it's a Marbury carbine.
We're close. It's a Maynard carbine.
Including the cap gun mechanism that used a roll of primers. The gun has a crusty but authentic appearance, indicating it saw actual service. Its serial numbers suggest it could have been a Southern gun sold right before the Civil War. The long-range sights are still intact, making it a sharpshooter's weapon, adding to its rarity. The guest admits the gun has been hanging over the family mantle for 30 years. After some research, he estimates its worth.
In today's world, this is a gun that I would insure for about $4,000.
Okay.
Upon opening the patch box on the gun, they discover a rare spare percussion nipple. A rare Korean matchlock gun, possibly used by a tiger hunter, reveals a piece of history. A guest shared that their grandparents were missionaries in Korea between 1890 and 1908, and their grandfather had purchased an item, supposedly from a Korean tiger hunter. The appraiser explained that the item was likely acquired just before the fall of the Korean dynasty, around 1911, during a sensitive period of Japanese occupation. The appraiser identified the item as a rare matchlock gun, noting that such guns were typically only seen in books and had never been encountered in person before. This early model firearm featured a hardwood stock, a handmade barrel, and a cord soaked in saltpeter for ignition. The appraiser mentioned that the Koreans continued using this type of gun because of its effectiveness. He also stated that the gun likely dated back to the 18th or 19th century and could fetch a good estimate at auction.
I would say conservatively at auction, the estimate would be like $3,000 to $5,000. I wouldn't be surprised if retail on a gun like this was $10,000 to $15,000.
Really? Well, thank you. I've wondered for years what kind of gun it was and when it might have been made.
The guest expressed gratitude, having long wondered about the gun's origins and value. From sheriff's badge to prized possessions, this Colt tells a tale of the Wild West obsession. The guest sport a Colt revolver that belonged to his great-grandfather.
That he was the first police chief in 1885?
About 1885. Don't know the exact date.
Okay.
The appraiser noted a photo showing him as the first police chief in 1885. The guest shared stories from his grandfather about the Old West, which his grandmother dismissed. The appraiser confirmed the Colt was a factory-engraved .45 caliber model. It had a 5.5-inch barrel, and it was in good condition. The original holster was also included. The engraving was by a famous Colt engraver. While giving the value, the appraiser said,
Well, we could sell it in our gallery for $25,000.
You're kidding.
No, serious.
It's not just a pair of pistols, it's a rare piece of Southern history with a unique story. A guest brought in 2 Derringer-style pistols to an appraiser for evaluation. The appraiser explained that while they resembled Derringers, they were actually Southern-made knockoffs. The guns were marked Schneider & Co., Memphis, Tennessee, though it is believed they were made in Nashville by Frank Bitterlich. Unique features like the flat grip and spur trigger made the pair stand out. Both pistols were in good condition, fully complete and functional, though the appraiser advised against using them. The appraiser mentioned that if they were standard Philadelphia-made Derringers, they'd be worth a lot each.
If these were a set of Derringers, the regular Philadelphia-made Derringers, these guns would sell between $1,000 and $1,500 a piece.
However, the Southern origin and rarity does increase their value. A single gun from this set could be worth about $4,000. As a pair, the value is much higher, leaving the guests surprised and speechless.
As a pair, they're a pair that would retail for about $10,000.
No kidding. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say.
The rifle belonged to the guest's parents, who received it as a wedding present in 1926 from a friend who was a gun collector. The appraiser described the rifle as wonderful, noting its exquisite raised carving. They emphasized that the most remarkable aspect was its untouched original flintlock condition, which is very rare for rifles, as most were used until they wore out and were converted to percussion systems. The appraiser explained that this rifle had never been modified. They pointed out the name Christian Beck, a respected gunsmith from Lebanon County, Pennsylvania, who worked from the late 18th century until around 1810. Although the original lock was missing the frizz spring, everything else was intact, showcasing stunning craftsmanship and intricate carving.
Here's the original. This is the original lock. It's missing the frizz spring, but it's all there. Wonderful carving here, and tremendous carving right here. It's just a remarkable rifle made by an expert gunsmith.
The appraiser expressed their delight in seeing such a remarkable piece and asked where it was currently displayed in the guest's home. The guest admitted somewhat embarrassingly that it was in the closet.
Where do you have it now in your house?
I'm embarrassed to say it's in a closet.
Well, you better get it out of the closet and put it on a wall.
The appraiser was surprised by this and informed the guest that due to the rifle's excellent condition, the high quality of the carving, and its maker, Christian Beck, it could be valued between $18,000 to $25,000. The guest found this estimate amazing, and the appraiser encouraged them again to get the rifle out of the closet.
To the gunsmith, Christian Beck, this would bring between $18,000 and $25,000.
That's amazing.
So get it out of the closet.
Yes, sir, I will, right away.
The guest shared a fascinating story about a firearm that belonged to his great-grandfather, Emil Hesnerd, who immigrated from the Black Hills of around 1882, France, South Dakota. He noted that his ancestor likely acquired the gun upon his arrival, and it's improbable that he purchased it in France. The appraiser inquired if Hestad was a gold seeker during the Black Hills Gold Rush, to which the guest confirmed.
Purchased a gun in France.
Was he a gold seeker in the Black Hills?
Came for the gold rush.
Yeah. This is exactly from that time period.
The appraiser identified the gun as dating back to the 1870s, emphasizing its rarity as a conversion from a percussion to a cartridge firearm. He pointed out unique features such as the hammer design and the loading gig.
And you can see that with the type of hammer that it has and the fact that right here it has a loading gig.
Okay.
As well as the naval battle scene on the cylinder that commemorates a battle from the Mexican-American War. Notably, the original holster accompanied the gun, which the guest confirmed was indeed the one his great-grandfather used.
Okay.
And I suppose this is the one that he had and carried
Yes,
with
it
him.
is, yeah.
It's a very rare holster. It's what they call a California Slim Jim pattern holster.
The appraiser described the holster as a rare California Slim Jim pattern perfectly shaped to fit the gun. The appraiser concluded that the combination of the gun and its original holster is highly valuable, and it's estimated between $5,000 to $7,000 at auction.
At auction, you'd probably be looking in the vicinity of about $5,000 to $7,000 for this piece.
Okay.
From a trial's dark past to a treasure that lasts, the guest brought in a family pistol, passed down through generations.
So that's been in my family for a couple of generations anyway.
Her mother shared that her grandfather, a federal judge in Wisconsin, took the gun after a murder trial in the 1920s. The guest learned that the gun was likely the murder weapon. The appraiser confirmed that the pistol was a .38 caliber with 1877 marking its patent date. It was made by Hopkins and Allen in Norwich, Connecticut, and likely produced in the 1880s. The appraiser noted the elegant engraving and ivory grips, suggesting the gun belonged to a gentleman. He also mentioned that the pistol came in its original box with instructions in English and Spanish. The appraiser estimated its auction value.
I would estimate at auction it would probably fetch somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000.
Oh my God. Oh, that's fantastic.
Thanks for bringing it in.
Oh, gee, thank you very much.